Imagine this. You're in the middle of a heated argument with someone you love. Maybe it's your partner, your best friend, or even a family member. Words are flying like daggers, and in a moment of frustration, they say something that stings deep, something you didn't even know bothered you. As the tension lingers, a question arises. Why did that hurt so much? Could it be that they've touched a part of you that you refuse to see? What if I told you that buried deep within your mind lies a hidden force, the shadow self, a concept from the psychology of Carl Jung? This part of you, often ignored or denied, shapes not only who you are, but also how you connect with others. And when it comes to relationships, understanding the shadow can mean the difference between growing together or falling apart. In this video, we'll explore Jung's theory of the shadow self, uncover how it manifests in relationships, and discover how navigating it can lead to profound growth. But first, what exactly is the shadow self? Understanding the shadow self. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, believed that every individual carries a shadow. This shadow represents the parts of ourselves we suppress, deny, or are even unaware of, our fears, insecurities, desires, and traits society deems unacceptable. Think of it like this. When you were a child, you learned which behaviors and emotions were acceptable and which weren't. Did you cry too much and get told to toughen up? Did you express anger and hear, "That's not how good kids behave"? Over time, these disowned parts of you didn't just disappear. They were shoved into the metaphorical basement of your mind, the shadow. And while these traits may be out of sight, they're never out of play. The shadow influences your thoughts, actions, and yes, your relationships. Now here's where it gets fascinating. Relationships are like mirrors. They reflect back the parts of ourselves we often can't see. And the shadow? It loves to reveal itself in the heat of emotional connection, especially during conflict. Conflict as the shadow's playground. Picture this. You're annoyed because your partner didn't do the dishes. Again, what starts as a minor irritation quickly escalates into a full-blown argument. Suddenly, you're accusing them of being lazy, irresponsible, or inconsiderate. But pause for a moment. Is this truly about the dishes? In many cases, conflicts in relationships aren't just about surface issues. They're about unmet needs, unspoken fears, or unacknowledged parts of ourselves. Jung would say that these moments are the shadow at work. Here's how it happens. Projection. When you deny a trait within yourself, you're more likely to see it in others. Maybe you criticize your partner for being selfish, but deep down, you've been taught that prioritizing your own needs is wrong. The selfishness you see in them might actually be a projection of your own suppressed desire for self-care. Triggers. Ever notice how some comments or behaviors push your buttons more than others? That's the shadow too. Triggers are emotional clues pointing to unresolved parts of your psyche. For instance, if you're deeply hurt by being called lazy, it might be because, at some level, you fear it could be true. Repeating patterns. The shadow loves to keep us stuck. Ever wonder why you keep attracting the same type of partner or falling into the same arguments? Until you address your shadow, it will continue to drive the bus, taking you down familiar but painful roads. The turning point. Awareness as the key to growth. The good news is that conflict doesn't have to destroy a relationship. It can be a powerful catalyst for growth if you have the courage to face your shadow. Awareness is the first step. Next time you're in a disagreement, pause. Ask yourself, what am I really feeling here? Anger, fear, shame. Then go deeper. Where might these feelings stem from? Journaling can be an excellent tool for this. After a conflict, write down the event, the emotions you experienced, and any memories or themes it brought up. Over time, you'll notice patterns, recurring themes that point to unresolved shadow elements. When you catch yourself criticizing someone else, stop. Ask, is this quality something I fear or reject in myself? Taking responsibility for your projections doesn't mean you blame yourself for everything. It means you reclaim power over your experience. By doing so, you begin to dissolve those unconscious patterns that keep you stuck. Resolution. The light within the shadow. Jung believed that embracing the shadow doesn't just mean acknowledging the darkness. It also reveals hidden strengths and untapped potential. By integrating your shadow, you become more whole, authentic, and compassionate, not just toward yourself, but toward those you love. In relationships, this integration transforms conflict into a pathway of understanding. Instead of blaming each other, you start asking meaningful questions. What can this challenge teach us? Which parts of ourselves need healing? This shift turns disagreements into opportunities for growth. Over time, integrating the shadow enriches intimacy, respect, and trust, creating a bond that can weather life's storms. Embracing the shared journey, co-navigating shadows together. But remember, relationships are seldom a solo endeavor. When you're committed to someone, whether it's a romantic partner, a dear friend, or a close family member, you're not just dealing with your own shadow. They have one too. This is where the journey becomes a shared exploration. Imagine two people daring to turn inward, acknowledging their own shadows, and then meeting in a space of honesty. Such vulnerability can be intimidating, but it's also a profound form of trust. By saying, "I recognize that I have insecurities and fears, and I know you do too. Let's navigate them together," you invite a deeper layer of understanding into the relationship. This co-navigating of shadows involves gently pointing out patterns in each other, not to shame or blame, but to help one another see what might be hidden. It's about developing a shared language for discussing tough emotions and old wounds. When two people commit to this process, conflicts become less about winning and losing, and more about supporting each other's growth. You learn to hold space for those vulnerable moments, creating a bond that's both resilient and authentic. Integrating shadow work into daily life. Shadow work isn't a one-time event or a weekend workshop. It's a continuous practice. To keep its benefits alive in your daily life and relationships, you need regular maintenance. Think of it like tending a garden. You don't just plant seeds and walk away. You water, weed, and nourish them over time. In everyday life, this could mean regular check-ins. How did we handle that conflict last week? What could we learn from it? It might mean setting aside time for honest conversations about feelings that are hard to name or acknowledging resentments before they fester. It can also mean seeking external support, therapy, counseling, or reading materials about Jungian psychology and shadow integration. Over time, these habits become second nature, preventing the shadow from controlling you from behind the scenes. By consistently integrating shadow work, you transform not only your relationships but also your individual trajectory. You become more attuned to the subtle signals of discomfort or anger before they boil over. You recognize when you're falling into old patterns and can course correct with compassion. This ongoing effort ensures that both you and your relationships continue evolving, guided by self-awareness rather than hidden fears. So, the next time you find yourself in the midst of a relationship struggle, remember this: the conflict isn't a failure, it's an opportunity to uncover your shadow, heal old wounds, and grow closer to the people you care about. Take a moment today to reflect. What triggers you? What patterns keep showing up in your relationships? What might your shadow be trying to teach you? Consider practicing more self-inquiry, seeking supportive dialogue, or exploring resources that can help you better understand these hidden aspects of your psyche. Over time, you'll find that these efforts pay off, not just in calmer, more authentic relationships, but in a more integrated and fulfilling life.